The evening was quiet, softer than the whisper of a feather falling onto still water. High above, the sky stretched wide and endless, painted with strokes of rose and lavender, the last touches of the sun before it surrendered to night. The valley below glowed faintly as though it held a secret, something ancient, something only the stars could fully understand. It was here, at the edge of the valley, that Alara stood. She was not a wanderer by choice. She had come because the world beyond had grown too loud, too heavy with voices and worries. Her heart longed for a place where time slowed, where her thoughts could float like clouds drifting across a wide sky. And so she followed a path she did not know, guided only by the soft hum she thought she heard beneath the wind. A hum like words without meaning, a lullaby without a singer. The grass brushed gently against her legs as she walked. Fireflies drifted above the fields, glowing in pale green and gold, and every step seemed to bring her deeper into silence. Yet it was not the kind of silence that feels empty. No, it was the silence of being held, as though the earth itself breathed in rhythm with her. She felt her shoulders lower, her breath deepen, and the weight she carried slowly begin to dissolve. Ahead, a stream cut across the path. Its surface shimmered with the light of the rising moon, as if silver had been poured across the water. Alara knelt beside it, dipping her fingers into the current. The water was cool but not cold, alive but not rushing. As she touched it, she heard something, a whisper, faint, fleeting, as though the river itself spoke. She leaned closer, but all she could hear was the gentle trickle over the stones. Am I imagining this? She wondered softly. But there was no answer, only the comfort of the night air. She followed the stream, letting it guide her deeper into the valley. Trees began to appear, tall and slender, their branches reaching high like arms stretching toward the heavens. Their leaves shimmered with moonlight, and the forest seemed to breathe in quiet harmony. A gentle fog began to gather at her feet, glowing faintly with a silver hue. The deeper she walked, the more the whispers returned. Not words exactly, but impressions, warmth, welcome, and something like memory. She felt as though she had been here before, perhaps in a dream long forgotten, a dream she once had as a child when the world was full of wonder. She came to a clearing where the grass bent in soft waves beneath the night wind. At its center stood an old stone, weathered and moss-covered, with lines carved into it so faint they seemed like shadows. She brushed her hand across the surface, and the carvings seemed to shift beneath her touch, glowing faintly as if waking from slumber. Alara, a voice whispered, not from the trees, not from the air, but from within her. She drew back, startled, yet strangely unafraid. The valley knew her name. She sat beside the stone, her heart steady, and closed her eyes. The whispers surrounded her now, like the murmur of 1,000 distant streams, soft and unhurried. They told her stories she could not fully understand, of ages long past, of guardians who once walked this land, of rivers that remembered every step taken along their banks. And then the lullaby came. It was no longer only a hum, but a song, tender and slow, weaving through the leaves, carrying her mind into a space between wakefulness and sleep. She lay back in the grass, watching the stars blink awake one by one. Her body softened, her breath slowed, and the valley seemed to hold her as though she were a child cradled in the arms of night itself. The last thing she saw before her eyes closed was the moon rising higher, its light spilling across the valley floor like liquid silver. And with that, Alara drifted into dreams. Dreams that felt not her own, but gifts, given by the valley itself. Alara woke to the sound of the forest breathing. At first, she thought it was her imagination. The sigh of wind through the leaves, the steady hush of the stream nearby. But as her eyes slowly opened, she realized the sound was deeper than that. It was as though every root, every branch, every stone carried the same rhythm, pulsing softly in time with her own heartbeat. She sat up, the dew on the grass clinging to her hair and dress, and noticed something strange. The stone she had touched last night now glowed faintly in the morning light. The carvings were no longer hidden, but clear, etched in flowing lines that curved like rivers and spirals of stars. She leaned close, tracing them with her finger, and again she felt that hum, that voice within her, quiet yet certain. "Walk," it seemed to say. "The valley is not yet fully awake. Follow, and you will see." Alara rose, her steps soft on the damp earth, and followed the path that stretched deeper into the forest. The air was cool, filled with the scent of moss and pine, but also something sweeter, like the faint perfume of flowers that bloomed unseen. Sunlight filtered through the trees in golden threads, each ray catching the mist and turning it into silver dust. Birds stirred overhead, their songs slow and melodic, as though even they had no need to rush. A deer appeared at the edge of the trees, its eyes luminous, its movements silent. It looked at her for a long moment, then turned and walked further down the path. She felt as though it was guiding her, and so she followed. The forest deepened, the trees taller and closer, their canopies woven like a ceiling of green and gold. The whispers returned, faint but clearer now, as though the valley itself had awakened with the sun. They did not speak in words she could repeat, but in feelings: safety, warmth, patience, and memory. It was like listening to a song in a language you didn't know, yet still somehow understanding every note. Hours passed, though Alara did not feel time as she usually did. She walked, breathed, listened, and simply was. And then she came to a place unlike any she had seen before. Before her stretched a wide glade, filled with flowers that glowed faintly even in daylight. Their petals shimmered in shades of blue, violet, and pale silver, bending with the breeze as though swaying to music only they could hear. In the center of the glade rose a tree unlike any other. Its trunk was broad and ancient, its bark etched with the same spirals she had seen on the stone. Its branches stretched far and high, and its leaves caught the sunlight like glass, sparkling with hues of emerald and sapphire. Alara felt her breath catch. She approached the tree slowly, reverently, as though stepping into a cathedral of living light. When she reached its roots, she placed her hand against the bark. Warmth spread through her palm, and at once she felt a flood of visions. She saw the valley as it once was, wide, untouched, filled with beings she could barely comprehend. Tall, graceful figures who walked with the trees, who spoke with the rivers, who sang to the stars. She saw them tending the land, weaving their lives with its rhythms, never rushing, never breaking. She saw how they had vanished, fading into whispers and memories, leaving behind their songs in the stones, the rivers, the trees. And she saw herself, not as she was now, but as a child, listening to stories by the fireside, dreaming of places that felt too beautiful to be real. The valley had called her long ago, she realized. She had only just answered. The vision faded, leaving her breathless but calm. The tree seemed to pulse beneath her hand, as though acknowledging her presence, welcoming her without question. "Alara," the voice came again, clearer now. "The valley remembers you. Stay, and you will remember yourself." She sat at the roots of the great tree, leaning back, her body sinking into comfort as though the earth itself was a pillow. The flowers swayed around her, their glow shifting with the light, and the whispers lulled her once more into that soft borderland between waking and sleep. But as her eyes closed, another vision came, unbidden. She saw a river of stars stretching above her, flowing endlessly into the horizon. She saw a path across it, as though the stars themselves were stones to be stepped upon. And at the end of that path was a light, golden, warm, vast. She reached toward it, her heart aching with longing, but the vision slipped away like water through her fingers. She woke with a slow breath, the great tree still above her, the whispers still soft and steady. The valley had shown her something more than dreams. It had shown her a promise, a doorway, a mystery waiting to be uncovered. And though she did not yet understand, she felt no fear. Only calm, only the quiet joy of being exactly where she was meant to be. Alara stood again, her body light, her mind unburdened. The path stretched further still, winding through the glowing flowers and back into the forest. She did not know where it would lead, but she no longer needed to. The valley would guide her, as it always had. She took her first step, and the whispers rose once more, 1,000 gentle voices carrying her forward, into the heart of the whispering valley. The forest opened slowly, as though the valley itself unfolded layer by layer, revealing its heart at a pace that asked for patience. Alara walked without hurry, her steps light, her mind carried by the hush of whispers that wove through the trees. The deeper she went, the softer the world around her seemed. Every sound, the chirp of a bird, the ripple of water, the rustle of leaves, melted into one continuous lullaby. The path curved downward, and soon she found herself at the edge of another stream. This one was wider than the first, its waters flowing with a steady silver light. The surface reflected the sky, though the stars had not yet come. It was as though the river itself carried its own night within it. Alara knelt at its bank, watching as the current slid by, and she felt again that strange hum, the same voice of the valley that had followed her since she arrived. She dipped her hand into the water, and ripples spread outward, glowing faintly. The ripples seemed to form shapes, fleeting and fragile, like shadows of creatures moving through another world. She saw what looked like wings, antlers, eyes gleaming softly, and then they vanished. Yet she did not feel alarm. Instead, she felt a calm curiosity, as though the valley wanted her to glimpse what it protected. The river led her to a bridge, though it was not made by hands. Instead, great stones rose naturally from the water, spaced perfectly for her to step across. Moss grew thick upon them, glowing faintly green, and the surface was soft beneath her feet. Each step felt as though she were walking upon memory, each stone holding the weight of countless travelers who had come before. At the other side of the river, the trees thinned, and she entered a meadow. The grass rose tall, whispering as the breeze swept through, and in the center stood a circle of stones. They were smooth, pale, and worn by time, but their arrangement was deliberate, a ring that seemed both ancient and alive. Alara stepped into the circle, and the whispers rose at once. Louder now, but not harsh. They surrounded her, gentle as 1,000 voices singing at once. She stood still, listening, and within their song, she felt meaning. The stones told her of balance, of the valley's endless rhythm, of seasons that rose and fell like the tide. They spoke of harmony, of the way every creature, every tree, every stream carried its role. They told her that to remain here was not to escape life, but to remember it as it was meant to be lived, slow, steady, whole. She lowered herself onto the grass within the circle, her body curling comfortably, and allowed her eyes to close. The whispers did not fade, they became her thoughts, her dreams. In that half-sleeping state, she saw visions once more. She saw the valley long ago, filled with figures who moved like light itself. They danced in the meadows, their laughter echoing like bells, their voices weaving with the wind. She saw them tending the stones, offering songs to the river, bowing to the great tree. And then she saw them fading, not from sorrow, but from choice. They had become the whispers, the breath of the valley, so that it might remain alive for all who found it. When she woke, the sun had lowered. The meadow was bathed in gold, and the circle of stones seemed to glow faintly with the day's last light. She rose, her body filled not with weariness but with peace. She looked at the stones once more, bowed her head, and stepped beyond them. The path led her further, through woods that darkened as twilight came. Shadows stretched long across the ground, and the first stars blinked awake above the treetops. She felt no fear in the dark, instead, it wrapped around her like a blanket. The whispers softened to match the night, slower now, as though preparing her to rest. At last she came to a lake. Its surface was smooth as glass, reflecting the sky so perfectly it was as though another world lay beneath it. The moon, now high, poured its silver light upon the water, and the whole lake shimmered with a gentle glow. Fireflies drifted at its edges, their lights flickering like tiny lanterns. Alara stepped to the shore and sat, her reflection looking back at her with calm eyes. She let her toes touch the water, and ripples spread outward, catching the moonlight. The whispers here were different, softer still, hushed like a lullaby sung at the edge of sleep. Rest, they seemed to say. The valley holds you. The night carries you. She lay back in the grass by the lake, watching the stars wheel slowly above. Each breath carried her further from thought, closer to dream. The sky deepened, the lake shimmered, and the whispers wove through her like a gentle tide. Her eyelids grew heavy, and before long she slipped once more into the valley's gift. A dream that was not hers alone, but the valley's, shared freely, endlessly, like the flow of water, like the light of the stars. The night deepened, and silence lay across the valley like a soft blanket. Alara rested by the lake, the stars reflected on the water as though the heavens had bent low to touch the earth. For a long time she simply breathed, her chest rising and falling with the rhythm of the world around her. She felt as though the valley had slowed her heartbeat until it matched the pace of the moon itself. When she rose, the moon was high, and its silver glow painted the path before her. She did not wonder where it led, she only knew she must follow. Each step was light, as though her feet no longer carried her weight but drifted with the whispers that guided her. The path curved upward, climbing a gentle slope. Trees stood tall on either side, their branches arching above her like a cathedral ceiling of living wood. Their leaves shimmered faintly with silver light, and the air itself seemed to hum, as if every particle carried music too delicate for words. At the top of the slope, Alara reached a hill that overlooked the entire valley. She stood still, breath caught in her chest. Below her stretched everything she had walked through, the glowing flowers, the great tree, the circle of stones, the river like a silver ribbon, and the wide, still lake. Each place pulsed with light, as though alive, as though welcoming her gaze. The whispers rose, surrounding her like a choir. They were no longer faint. They were clear, strong, though still soft, a voice woven from thousands of voices, ancient yet gentle. Alara, they said, you have listened, you have remembered, the valley will remain, and so will you. What you have seen, what you have felt, is not dream but truth. Carry it with you, rest in it, become part of it. Her eyes filled with quiet tears, though she did not feel sorrow. The tears were born of release, of all the burdens she had carried, the noise she had fled, the weight of time and worry that no longer held her. She felt them slip away like water flowing from her hands, leaving only stillness behind. The hilltop glowed brighter, and before her appeared a figure. It was not man nor woman, not shadow nor light, but something both familiar and vast. Its form shimmered like water, its eyes like twin stars. She felt no fear, only recognition. You have come home, the figure whispered. This valley is within you, as you are within it. When you close your eyes, when the world outside grows heavy, return here. The whispers will always guide you. Alara reached out, her fingers brushing against the figure's light. At once, warmth spread through her, not as fire but as calm, deep and endless. She felt the valley within her veins, within her breath, within her dreams. She knew she would never be apart from it again. The figure faded into starlight, and the hilltops softened beneath her feet. The whispers quieted until they were once more only a hush of wind through the leaves, a lull of water over stone. But Alara no longer needed to strain to hear them. They were part of her now. She lay down upon the hill, the grass soft beneath her, the stars endless above. Her eyes closed, and her body melted into the earth as though she belonged to it completely. The night rocked her like a cradle, and the valley's lullaby carried her into sleep, a sleep without end, without worry, filled only with the eternal whisper of peace. And so the valley kept her, not as a prisoner, but as a memory, a dream, a song that would live as long as the stars shone above its hills. The whispering valley would always remain, waiting for those who listened, waiting for those who needed rest. And somewhere, beyond words, beyond time, Alara drifted, calm, whole, and forever at home.